Today, a HEX rose among thorns. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to his post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Today I'm joined by Jonno Katz. Hi Johnny.
Hello, how are you going, Martin?
Yeah, great to have you on. We've had a few technical struggles, but we got there finally, so it's good to have you. Now, the reason that this is an interesting conversation is that amongst the pantheon of cryptocurrencies, there's about 6,000 out there now, right? And it's worth about, what, 1.2, 1.3 trillion, depending on what day you look at it, right? But one of the ones that you're interested in is a crypto called HEX, and I thought it'd be interesting to have a conversation about that because, you know, I haven't really heard much about it and it's not in the top 10 list or anything. So let's start with a bit of background about yourself, but then talk a little bit about HEX and why it is that you think that HEX is a really interesting thing to talk about.
Well, actually, just one quick correction. If you look at a good data site like nomics.com, it is in the top 10. And if you look around at the different ranking sites, they use very different metrics. And so you have to be very careful about what data you're going to use there. But about me, I kind of found Bitcoin in 2015. And I was just a hobbyist, I guess. I bought my first Bitcoin in 2016 and I followed the block wars and followed the space a lot, saw Etherium come up. And then when HEX came along, it was just completely revolutionary, the whole approach that he took, Richard Hart, the inventor of HEX, took to it. And HEX is basically just a contract. It's a simple contract which sits on Etherium or can sit on other blockchains. And so when you give HEX to the HEX contract and get interest in return, you're only dealing with that contract. And that contract doesn't have any administration keys. It's completely locked. And so it's going to be immutable for the rest of time and secured by whatever blockchain that it sits on.
Basically, it's a crypto that sits on Ethereum, right?
It's a token that sits on Ethereum, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's understand a bit more about this token because there are some unique characteristics about this particular token and the way it works, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just like any other token. It's an ERC20 token. It sits on Ethereum and it's secured by the Ethereum blockchain. But with HEX, you can stake it anywhere from 1 day to 5,555 days. So it's a little over 15 years. And it pays out interest. And that interest replicates compound interest. And so people are very incentivized to lock it up. And at the moment, there's like $5 or $6 billion US dollars locked up for on average, like 5.5 to 6 years. And as people lock up this token, they're taking it out of the supply. And so that when you have diminished supply and equal or greater demand, the market ends up valuing that by pushing the price up. And that's what we've seen. It's only been out for a year and a half. And in that year and a half, it's gone up like around 1,700x, like 170,000%. And even when other...
Sorry, the volume, not the price, right?
No, the price.
The price? Okay, right.
Price. Yeah, 1,700x, yeah.
Okay.
And even when other cryptos were crashing, and we've seen this like crypto sort of head into a little bit of a bear market.
Just a bit.
HEX has continued to go up.
Okay.
And it's really been the little green lifeboat that's just like continues to go up. And anyone can look at the price. It's on it's mainly traded through Uniswap, which is another decentralized contract. So you can really trust that data because you can see all of the buys and sells on the blockchain. And it's gone up in price. It continues to go up in price. And so you earn money from earning interest multiplied by whatever price increase as well.
Right. So this is, a rather, unique formulation in terms of the way that, the pantheon of cryptos work, because there's a massive number of different ones and they all work differently, right? So the characteristics are you can lock in a particular time frame and essentially you get a return not just based on the price movement, but also a return based on the value that you've locked up.
Well, the interest that you earn in terms of HEX.
Yeah.
Like the contract HEX is its own ecosystem. And that is completely, like the interest you earn is completely separate from whatever the price is. Yeah. So
where does the interest come from then?
Great question. Because on average, people are earning like 36 or 37% interest. And so how do you get such amazing interest? It's because the HEX token inflates at up to 3.69% per annum. And so, but it only pays that inflation of the coin to stakers. And so as people lock in what's called a share rate and they put their stakes out into the future, they're getting paid that inflation out into the future. So, so it's weighted mostly out to the, 10, 15 year marks and going down. And so the interest is a combination of that inflation being paid out always into the future, plus any penalties. And people can incur penalties when they end their stakes too early. Like they run a function called the emergency end stake. So if you have a stake for like 10 years and by year 5, you're like, wow, that's worth so much money, I want to take that out. You can run the emergency end stake function, but you'll have heavy penalties. And so at the halfway point, you lose any interest that you've accrued, but you just get back your principal. And before, if you emergency end stake it before like a 2-year mark or something like that, it really eats into your principal as well. So it rewards people who can delay gratification, and it rewards people who do what they say they're going to do. And it's really just you interacting with the contract. There's no counterparty risk. There's no organisation that you have to rely on. There's no, organisation which is running things. It's all just people who have decided, like especially the people who promote it and stuff like that, they're just people who have found out about it and want to spread the word about this amazing product.
Right. So to be clear, it's something which essentially is a savings vehicle rather than the payment or transaction vehicle, right? Which separates it from the likes of Bitcoin and some of the other ones that are out there, right? Yep. Is that true or not?
Well, Bitcoin started off saying that they were going to replace the payment system.
Yes.
But as blockchains fill up, they get expensive and slow to use.
Yes.
So when it started filling up, Bitcoin kind of pivoted from the payments network to a store of value.
Yeah, digital gold, which may not have worked quite as well as people planned, seeing it's down 50%, right?
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at the last decade, Bitcoin is up like 10 million% or something like that. I mean, in the long term, cryptocurrencies have been the highest appreciating assets in history. And HEX was the highest appreciating asset of 2020. And it looks like it might repeat that in 2021.
Right. So is this really a bit of a Ponzi scheme? In other words, you need more people to come in to be able to actually increase the volume and therefore the value? Is that, I want to put Ponzi scheme in inverted commas, but do you need more people to come in basically to make this thing work?
No, you don't, because you're only dealing with the contract.
Right.
And the contract adjusts. Like if more and more people stake, then the amount of interest that everybody earns goes down. So it's a self-balancing system. And if the amount of people staking decreases, the amount of interest that all the stakers are receiving goes up. So at the moment, a little less than 10% of all HEX is being staked. So that's why you're seeing this amazing interest rate of an average of around 37%. Like that's for the 5-year mark. It's different. Shorter you'll earn less, and longer you'll earn a lot more. So there's no counterparty risk, and people first of all, people throw around these words like scam, Ponzi, and pyramid very willy-nilly, and they often don't understand what they mean. A pyramid scheme is when you have referrals and you have like a multi-level referral system. There's no referrals whatsoever in HEX. A Ponzi scheme is when they promise returns within the US dollars or whatever fiat you're earning, and the people coming in pay those people their returns, and so then all these other people are left with the bags. But in HEX, the contract will always be able to pay out an interest, and so it's not. There's no counterparty risk, and you're not relying on any people there. So it's not a Ponzi at all.
So if you want then to convert your stake into dollars or something else, right? You have to go through an exchange, I imagine, to do that. Do you?
Yeah. What happens is, well, in Australia we can't buy HEX on any exchanges.
Right.
So what you would have to do is you buy Ethereum, and then you would send that Ethereum to somewhere where you control your own keys, like MetaMask or a hardware wallet. And then you could go on it's called Web3. It's like the decentralized financial system. And you just can go to a website like HEX.com, which is a front end for Uniswap, which is, and then you just swap that Ethereum for HEX. And if you want to stake it, you send the HEX to the contract, run the stake function, and let's say you make a stake for a year, and then at the end of that year, you come back and you run another function, and that mints you your new HEX, which is the principal plus whatever interest that you've accrued. And remember, that interest is the inflation being paid out over time plus any penalties that other people have earned. And so then once you have the new HEX, then you go back to the decentralized Uniswap, and you swap it back to Ethereum, you send it back to your Australian exchange, and that's how you get it back into Australian dollars.
Okay. Sounds a little tortuous, but I understand the rationale.
You know what? It's a learning process.
Yeah,
like any learning process, it starts off, you are a bit scared and it's a bit awkward and you don't know what you're doing, but then as you do it, you find out it's actually quite simple. And there's a lot of materials on the web and people that can help you out. There's a lot of hexicans on Twitter that you can go into the Telegram chats. And if you want, you can go to and get sort of handheld through it with individual coaching sessions with a company. Like I'm a coach of a company, so I help people through that process. That's digitalwealthmanagement.com.au. And they have courses and things like that if people need to be handheld through that process, they can. But all of this information is freely available. You can go to hex.wiki, which is a fantastic website. Even just go to hex.com, check out the frequently asked questions. And it is a learning process. And, you have to ask questions and you have to go through that awkward stage until you get comfortable with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to clarify, when you're spelling HEX, how do you spell it?
HEX.
Okay, good. The reason I ask is that because there are actually also sites with HEXX around as well.
Right. Yeah, careful, because there's a lot of, the whole crypto space is filled with shark-infested waters and people trying to scam. And anytime there's a kind of something that has a lot of success, like HEX, then all of a sudden people start jumping on and trying to get at those honeypots.
Yeah.
So you really have to see with cryptocurrencies. I mean, it's fantastic to be your own bank, but that also means you have to take responsibility for your own security. And another great site that an Australian guy runs, who's put a lot of videos on about security, is safehex.win. And I'd highly recommend checking out that and just really going out and getting yourself educated so that you can make informed decisions about all of these things.
Well, I've been talking about distributed finance for several years because I think it's a really important trend, right? And it really does change the way that financial systems work and your own finances work. But as you say, there are a whole bunch of things you've got to be careful about, and there are really very few guide rails at the moment, are there?
True. And you know what? There's one in the Telegram chat called HEX Security. A lot of people come in who have been hacked or whatever, and 100% of the time, from what I can tell, it's because of social engineering. It's that somebody has contacted them and said, here, I'm going to help you out. And they've somehow gotten them to put their seed words into a malicious website.
Yep.
And honestly, or they've rung them up on they put their phone number somewhere and they ring them up pretending to be someone else or pretending to be someone from the bank, and they manipulate them into giving out their seed words. So the rule is never give out your seed words to anyone, never put them into any kind of website unless you're absolutely sure what you're doing. And there's plenty of people who can really help out, and you can ask questions in the public spaces. If you ever go on Telegram and you're messaged by someone individually, don't listen to them. They are not from HEX support or anything like that. Nothing like that exists. It's all done out in the public, and that's really important for people to be aware of that.
Yeah, and the reason I wanted to focus on this conversation was partly to highlight HEX, but also to highlight the risks that we need to be aware of, right, in this crypto universe where effectively there are very few guide rails, there are very few controls, there are so many places where people can actually get messed over if they don't know what they're doing, right? And yet, on the other hand, there is actually a path through that actually has some interesting characteristics, and you can see a trend that could take us into a very different and distributed financial future where effectively our large financial institutions become less relevant and less important to people.
Absolutely. From my perspective, HEX is the ultimate savings vehicle. And I can't see, and it's brilliant. And yes, you have to take responsibility for your own security, but once you've nutted that out, then it's relatively safe to use, and it's even safer than having your money in a bank in a lot of ways. They've had bail-in, and I mean you've seen what the banks have been up to with the Royal Commission, all that kind of stuff. I mean, when you're assessing risk, there's no metric to assess risk. It's really about you understanding and getting informed and assessing that risk yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think this is a journey of discovery for many people. And, I've consistently said that on one hand, we shouldn't go holers bothers into crypto without understanding what we're doing. But also, we shouldn't actually just say, no, it's all rubbish. And there is a kernel of truth here, right? And a trajectory into a future which is quite different from where we currently are. And that's what interests me, as I talk to people in this space about the way that things could develop. I'm clear it's going to be a bumpy ride. There are going to be, risks that need to be navigated, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater in terms of actually understanding what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's worth it to get informed and to understand it.
Well, I appreciate that. Now, if there's one site that you'd recommend if people want to find out a little bit more about HEX, so what's the best one to go to? Well,
hex.com, and it is the best site, and that's got links to everything else, and it's got some videos that people can watch. I definitely recommend reading the FAQs if you want to really start getting into the weeds around T-shares, because understanding T-shares and how the share system in HEX works is really the key to understanding HEX. And there's a great site called hex.wiki, WIKI. If you want to look at security, safehex.win. Is also highly recommended, and if you want your hand held through the process, then it's about kind of buying a course where you have one-on-one coaching and stuff like that. And in that case, I'd recommend digitalwealthgroup.com.au.
Yes, which of course you have an interest in, but that's okay. That's not a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. And it's all open and disclosed. Look, I appreciate your time today, John. A very interesting conversation, and thanks very much for sharing that with my audience. We'll put the links and things down below, and I'll keep an eye on this one. Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Martin, for your time.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye.